They are meant for only people who are scholars to discuss and do those threadbare discussions and put us all in confusion. Common people, like all of us, most of us, we feel very strange and we are very hesitant to approach these Shastras. But it was grace of God that I joined Vivekanand Kendra. And during the training period in Kanyakumari, we had series of talks by Professor Satyanarayan Shastriji. Unfortunately, he's not no more with us. And it was he who introduced Yoga Vasishta to our batch and particularly to me. It was he who convinced me and respected Swami Ranganathananji that these Shastras, these scriptures, are really meant for our day-to-day existence in this world. To most of you who have heard Yoga Vasishta, who are familiar with the book, know that the background of Yoga Vasishta happens to be the disinterest of Rama. And just like Bhagavad Gita, it is the first chapter which gives the whole background and backdrop for the scripture. It is said when he was in teens, most of you know the story of it, but let me recall what happened. 16-year-old Rama felt like going on a pilgrimage. And he went around meeting people, meeting sages, visiting hermitages, meeting enlightened people. He had wonderful experience. But as and when he started coming back to Ayodhya, to his kingdom, because he was the crown prince, sensitive that he was, and very, very observant, during the pilgrimage and especially after his return from pilgrimage, certain things started happening in his mind. He found most of us are living a life and it apparently is purposeless. What is happening? We are surviving, and for that survival, we are active. All our activities are towards survival. But unfortunately, there is no purpose behind. Our Mamaji in Kanyakumari always says that most of us are living like as though we are standing in queue for Kanyakumari's darshan or Tirupati darshan. Says we do not know when we entered the temple and when we come out, because the crowd always pushes us. So the crowd of our mind, the mental thoughts, desires, they keep pushing us till we complete our life. He started analyzing the life as it is understood by most of us. Our interaction with the world, which is very, very necessary, is through the senses. So we interact with the world, we understand the world through the senses, through the objects, when the senses interact with the objects. Certain experiences give us happiness, and certain other experiences, contact with the objects, they are not so much, and certain other contacts are positively painful or miserable. The experiences which we like to repeat, and the experiences which we do not like, we'd like to avoid them. This repetition is called as raga in Yoga Shastra, and the aversion, the avoidance, is called as dvesha. Unfortunately, we react to the contact of senses. We react positively or negatively. And these negative and positive cause impressions in our mind. When the impressions remain, somehow or the other we feel like repeating them. The repetition, they create permanent impressions, and to an extent, they start affecting or they're forcing us towards a particular way of behavior. This world of contact, the world which has come through the contact of senses, is actually created by us. It is our world. As most of the people say, even the science agrees, that what we see and what we perceive, seeing is through the eyes, perception is always personal. It's highly personal. So each one of us has a world of his or her own. Having understood this interaction, Rama says, life for most of us, that is Rama's statement, life for most of us is an interaction with the object of senses, through senses. And mind married to the senses, because unless and until mind is behind the senses, we are unable to perceive. For example, our eyes are on the screen now. We are listening to something. Something else is happening around us, but we are not aware of that because we are in a world of our own. Personal, whatever we see, whatever we read, we interpret the world according to our nature. So, Rama says that most of us are involved with our mind and indulged with our senses with the world. When this happens, there's one peculiar thing which happens with this. What happens is, after every sense gratification, apparently we feel happy. But that happiness as such doesn't give us fulfillment, doesn't make us fulfilled or satisfied totally. It is temporary. And this temporalness of our interaction brings us to another another characteristic of world, that is temporary. Things are very, very temporary. They don't last. Whatever we have, whatever we achieve, is temporary. For example, we had dreamt of becoming somebody. Most of us, I'm sure that most of us who are listening to this, who are participating in this dialogue, have achieved whatever we wanted to achieve. But still, there is a sense of unfulfillment. We don't feel fulfilled. There is a kind of discontent. We are not contented in spite of having something. So there is a kind of emptiness. Rama says, is unfulfilled because the desires are increasing day by day, day by day. We are having newer goals to achieve, and as and when we achieve the goal, is that all? For example, let us say that a person wanted to buy a Maruti. He buys it. And for that, obviously, he works, he earns the money, or maybe he applies for a loan and gets the car. He gets the car, he drives, he uses it. But a time comes when he feels that this is a smaller car, I want to have a bigger one. This is the gradual increase of our desires. Maybe actually we wanted only for a transport, but we have started comparing ourselves with others, or our desires have increased in quantitatively, they have increased, and again it goes on and on and on. Mahendranath Gupta, who is called as Master Mahashaya, disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he says, if you keep your life simple, if you curtail your expenses, then you do not have to work throughout your life. You'll have time to think about God. There is so much of truth in it. What happens is we go on working endlessly. And at the end of it all, probably the time for exit from this world comes and then we leave. Maybe due to sickness, maybe anything, something. And at the end of our life, what have we done? Nothing. This sense of unfulfillment, this discontent happens when we depend too much on the world as such, with its objects. Second thing that afflicts our life is time. Kala, he calls it as Kala. Kala is that which brings in change. Every one of us has experienced it. About 20, 25 years back or 30 years back, how we used to look, our appearances have changed. We have changed from youth to middle age, from middle age to old age. And this change is seen not only personally by us, but we see that all around. Buddha says somewhere that you cannot step into the river, you cannot step into the same river twice, because the water is flowing. Not only the water is flowing, but the person who is stepping in is also changing. This change is very, very natural. It's part of life. But unfortunately, the mind, it holds on to something which is either of the past, or if it has liked some part of the past, it wants to repeat it in future. So our mind is either in the past or in the future. Many a time, not most of the time, many a time, we dwell on what happened to us, something negative that happened. You may be aware that there may be some people whom you have come across who will be saying that in 1949, I had the influenza in which so many people died. Now, it was way back, 70 years back, this would have happened. But that happened to somebody that he suffered. He carries it like those Veera Chakra and Shaurya Chakras on the chest of an army man. We carry negative things as well as positive things. We remember good things also. And we want to avoid the bad things and we want to repeat the things. Consequently, what happens is we step into the future, which we are uncertain. If anything has taught us this COVID, it is uncertainty. We do not know when and how this corona will affect us. We'll take all the precautions, but there are people, it's very sad to know that so many of the health workers were afflicted and they have passed away. But a few of them recovered. But those people who have taken so much care, even those people get it. So we have learned uncertainty. We have learned austerity naturally. It was a forced austerity because of lockdown. Probably, as Sudhakar Ji said, that we have learned so many things. Among the things we have learned is austerity, forced austerity. And perhaps it would be nice, because I don't think we have suffered so much because of lockdown. Only maybe we were not able to socialize. But thanks to internet and Zoom meetings or Google Meet meetings, we are able to see our friends and we are able to spend time. And as most of us are involved in contemplation, study of texts, listening to people, so we are spending our time and we find there's nothing much to complain about. So this COVID has helped us in austerity and spending time properly. Let's use it. The next thing which Rama tells is about, he describes about our own life. Children, he says, basically are afraid of things. They are fearful because they are not aware of many things in life. They are they are afraid of the seniors, the peer group, and fear of they're afraid of the surroundings, darkness, things like that. Youth, when we are youthful, we are arrogant because of the energy. We are full of energy. We are arrogant, and somehow or the other, we feel that we can pluck the stars from the sky. This arrogance is also there because of youth energy. And also, during youth, the indulgence of senses with their objects is maximum. He says, we waste our childhood in fear, but we are ignorant there. We waste our youth in indulgences and arrogance. And as and when we approach dotage, old age, we start involving ourselves in our physical health. We pay too much of attention about sickness. The word is hypochondria, that is fear of illness. We are not ill, but we are very precautious that we want to keep ourselves healthy. And we are afraid, if we are unhealthy, if we become sick, who will look after us? There is a concern. There is again a fear. The fear which was there in childhood has been repeated in old age also. There is another facet to this old age. Because the old person is not able to interact with the world because of so many reasons. Because the youth may not come to him. Because many a time, old people are very critical about the youth. Invariably, they says, what is it that you don't have any value system? You don't follow the discipline. You're indisciplined. If we start commenting on youth, naturally, what is it that we are doing? Basically, we wanted somebody to come and spend time with us. But since we are critical, the youth and the other people, they stop coming to us. They go away from us. Again, when they go away from us, we become more and more bitter. So old age has this problem, and we invariably say there is a generation gap between the two generations, between old and the new, or the next generation, next as it's called. Why does it happen? We have so much to advise people because of our experiences. Probably our intentions are most of the time, the intentions are very good, but the timing is not right. If we are able to build an equation with youngsters, and when does that happen? It happens when we start listening to the younger generation. In fact, that is the thing with whenever even a communication takes place, we should listen to the people. We should be ready to listen to the people. When that happens, when we listen, then we are able to understand their side. And when we understand their side, probably we are able to be with them. Now, what is happening is, it is like in Hindi, it's called as 36 ka agra, 36. 3 is facing on one side and 6 is on the other side. The generations are like that. If we start meeting, when does that happen? When we start becoming receptive to one another. Since we have grown old, we have become old, we have the experience of the past. We have our friends, we have our wonderful moments in the past. We can be more patient in listening to them. And when we listen to them, the children will come to you and the gap is closed. Childhood, youth, and old age. These are the phases which every one of us pass. But what happens? Mind as such is not receptive. It is not receiving. It is all the time involved or indulged with the world. Rama gives a very beautiful example. He says, on a moonless night, on a dark night, the owls, the night birds, they start becoming active. Just like that, when the mind is non-receptive, it is not aware of itself. It is not aware as to what is happening to itself. The desires or the owls in the form of desires, they start disturbing us. And when that disturbance comes, because of the darkness, we start developing certain emotions, maybe fear and passions and things like that. And then this vicious circle of indulgence, involvement, fears and other negative emotions. And then again, we start indulging. And that's how this vicious circle gets created. Last but not the least is the time, the concept of time. He says, every one of us is controlled by time. We spend time, and many of us says, what are you doing this evening? I'm free. Actually, we are not free at all. But we say, just to kill time, let's go for a movie. Let's sit and play cards. Sri Ramakrishna gives a very beautiful example. He says, as and when a person becomes old, he says, I cannot keep quiet. Somebody comes and asks him, what is it that you're doing? I'm building a fence. Why? Because I'm not able to keep quiet. Then Ramakrishna says, if he's not building a fence, maybe he's involved in playing cards because he says, I have time. I don't know how to spend it. Actually, you are not spending time. You are not killing time. Time is killing you because every day we are spending it wastefully. Somebody was telling that why is it that we get retired? Some of us retire at a younger age. Many of us retire at the age of 60. It is because we require to spend time with ourselves. I do not know which Ramayana it is because there are so many Ramayanas which have been interpreted by the poets in different ways. Dashratha, it is said, he had decided to give the throne to Rama, but he was not aware of the time as to when it is to be given. He was looking into the mirror, and when he was standing in front of the mirror, he was not able to see himself. So he went near it. And it is said, the curl of his hair peeped into his ear and whispered, Dashratha, the time has come for you to introspect, look within. And that was when, it is said, Dashratha decided to hand over the throne to Ram. So old age is a fulfillment of the age. We have received everything. We have whatever we want to achieve, we have achieved. But this is the time when the time has come for us to give to ourselves. These were the thoughts which were going on in the mind of Rama. He was young, but he was extremely receptive. First thing is, he says the desires are so overpowering. Most of our lives are spent only in fulfilling our desires. But they have one problem, that is the life as such is uh, spent only in this. The life has something else. Rama, who had gone on a pilgrimage, which set this thought in him. He had met common people, he had met other persons, he had met the enlightened persons as well. And he was able to differentiate between the common man and the people who are enlightened. What differentiated them was, it was this aspect that they had understood the life, they had understood what it was. He would have had discussions there, and from those discussions, there are some things which are coming in this Vairagya Prakarana. We are discussing actually Vairagya Prakarana, when Rama is disinterested in life. He was full of, it was peak of his youth. He was 16 years old, it is said, when this happened. But he was extremely receptive. He was observant. And many of us spend our whole life without understanding what life is. It's like entering a queue to get into the temple, have darshan, and we are pushed outside. We go near the image, and probably at that time something else happens, and then we come out of the temple because of the heavy rush. So life is something like that. But for persons like Rama, who happens to be our representative, he observes and he becomes basically restless, not for getting things inside, but for the outside, but for the things which are happening in his own mind. Why is it that in spite of the fact that I have so many things, why is it that I have discontentment? Why is it that the mind always overpowers me? Why am I walking like an automaton? That is, something is driving me, not myself. It's not the me. I don't have that awareness. All these things he is able to observe. He observed it in people, and he started transferring those very things in his own mind, and he was able to observe himself. In fact, this is when spirituality starts, when we start observing ourselves. Avritta chakshu amritatpamichan. It is said, what happens when we start looking within? This looking within is very much necessary to start spirituality as such. Rama, it happened to Rama, and he became totally disinterested in external things. So when Vishwamitra comes to the court of Dasharatha, it is already, this condition has been explained to him by his attendants to Dasharatha, King Dasharatha. Vishwamitra, the moment Vishwamitra comes, as was the habit, as was the custom those days, the king came down, prostrated in front of him, and then he said, please come and sit. He was offered the asana. And he said, whatever is your bidding, I am ready to follow, obey. When he asked Rama, when he said that I want Rama to come with me, accompany me, because I'm going to perform certain yajnas. He'll be there to protect me from the attack of Rakshasas. Immediately, Dasharatha says, it's very difficult. Rama is not in a condition to come with you. What happened? He says, he's totally disinterested. It is then Vishwamitra says, you call Rama to the assembly. Rama comes to the assembly. He is asked by Vishwamitra, what is happening to you? Why is it that you feel disinterested? It is Rama who explains these things. It is his understanding. And naturally, because he is a youth, His observation is there. He has understood these points, but he's unable to know how these problems are to be solved. He has discussed it with people, but he's unable to know what is the solution. So he starts pouring out. He's extremely disturbed, and in that disturbed state of mind, in spite of the fact that he's disturbed, he's explaining things as to what has happened to him. And that's where, again, coming back to it, the mind and its problems, that is, the likes and dislikes which happened, because of which our mind is becoming stronger. How it is to be controlled, he's unable to know. He has understood certain things, but at the same time, he doesn't have practical knowledge about it. He tells all these things. And this is the time when Vishwamitra says that Rama is in a position, is in an ideal position to listen to Vedanta stories by Vasishtha. These difficulties which one faces, but most of us, no difficulties because we are involved with the work. It's not our fault. And for everything, there is time. Unless and until we are fulfilled in a particular stage, we cannot come out. It's not our fault that we are not able to see these things. But Rama was in a ripe state of mind. That is when he is able to see certain things, but not everything. That is when Vishwamitra says, he requests Vasishtha to say that Rama is in an ideal position. He is an adhikari who will be able to listen to you and benefit therefrom. Whatever advices, you tell him the Vedanta stories. That's what Vishwamitra tells Vasishtha Muni. And the conversation which took place between Rama and Vasishtha happens to be the subject matter of Yoga Vasishtha. In this scripture, not only the problems discussed by Rama, that is of the mind, the 10 senses which cause the impressions on the mind, likes and dislikes, how we are overpowered by desires, how to get rid of them, how to transcend time, because Kala happens to be very, very important, because we're subject to time. We are under the rule of time. Each one of us has certain time, and during that particular time, how to spend our time properly, how it afflicts us. These were understood by Rama, but not fully. He requests, Sage Vishwamitra requests Vasishtha to enlighten him with Vedanta stories. And those Vedanta stories form the subject matter of Yoga Vasishtha. This Yoga Vasishtha, in fact, it's a continuous process. We have to keep on reading it, and every time we read, we get a new insight into what we have read. Earlier, probably we were in a particular stage which made us understand something. But if you continue to read this scripture, Yoga Vasishtha, Laghu Yoga Vasishtha, because Brihad Yoga Vasishtha is too big. Laghu Yoga Vasishtha, if you read and get involved in it, you will be able to solve many of your problems, if not most of them. It gives from the beginning of the journey, the difficulties thereof in starting the journey. After having starting the journey, what are the difficulties which we face externally? What are the problems which we face internally, which are more intense? How to solve them forms the subject matter of Laghu Yoga Vasishtha. And this is a wonderful scripture in the sense it was introduced to me by Professor Satyanarayana Shastriji, late Professor Satyanarayana Shastriji. And I'm extremely grateful to him because this was introduced in 1977, way back in 1977. And I still feel I'm still studying it. I'm not able to fully understand. I'm basically a student of Yoga Vasishta, Laghu Yoga Vasishta, and our Vedanta as such. So if I'm able to spend some time and share some of my thoughts, because this is going to be I was given to understand that this can be an interactive series, lectures, in which case we can have clarifications of the questions which are asked by you in whatever way Sudhakarji says. Maybe you can talk to him about it. We will try to go on this journey together. We'll understand Yoga Vasishta, and not only understand Yoga Vasishta, but we'll try to practice what has been taught to us by this great scripture. We'll not go into the details of who wrote it, and actually it was written by Valmiki or somebody else. We'll not go into those details because they are all academic. I personally believe that unless and until you start the journey, start walking the path, we'll not be able to fully get the joy of studying this particular scripture. Let us uh, uh, let us go on this journey by studying the scripture. We'll not go by word to word shlokas and things like that. We'll take the normal, common day-to-day examples, and at the same time connect ourselves with Rama, who is our leader seeker. He's leading us, and we are all following him. He is asking questions to Vasishta, and Vasishta is answering us through him. Just like Arjuna happens to be the person through whom we understand the teachings of Krishna. And this has been the method, the dialogue method of all our Vedantic Shastras, all our scriptures as such, which give us so much. And I'm afraid I'll not be able to give scholastic things because Yoga Vasishta is, of course, it is meant for scholars. Let them study the way they want it. But we are all seekers. We'll try to understand from our point of view because we are walking on this path and we are trying to make fulfillment as our goal. Our journey is fulfillment of life. As Angiras ji, that is respected Mamaji from Vivekanand Kendra, he says, we enter the life as if we are entering the queue of a temple, Kanyakumari temple. And we go on moving forward and we do not know when we come out of it. Our life has become a queue in a temple, but we do not understand what the temple can give us. So the scripture has got so much to give us. All scriptures, whether it's Upanishads or Yoga Vasishta. In fact, Upanishad, I must acknowledge here, even the Upanishads were introduced to us by Professor Satyanarayana Shastriji, and of course, Swami Ranganathananji, whom I had the privilege to meet during my engineering days. And these two people have shaped my life. And later on, many people have come into my life. And whatever way I could get into this line, Vedanta, Yoga Vasishta in particular, and Upanishads in general, whatever has taught me, I'll try to share it with you. I'm sure that each one of us has so many things to discuss. So let this not be only a one-way process. Let it be a two-way process. But how it is to be done, probably Sudhakarji will be able to tell. I think for this first session, it's time that we'll conclude it here. And when the time comes, when Sudhakarji tells us, we'll take up this issue again. But I must tell you that this scripture I have studied only in the background of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Now, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you don't require so much of discussion because every page, every paragraph has got something to offer to you. So this happens to be actually my contact with the gospel, my study with the gospel, which has made me understand Yoga Vasishta and Vedanta, that is Upanishads, in that light. And I'm extremely grateful to Swami Ranganathanji, Satnand Shastriji, who are no more in this world. And of course, to Paramahansa Sri Ramakrishna's Parampara, the Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekanand Kendra, for whatever I am today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was wonderful to listen. I went back to my days of training way back in 79. And it opens the scene actually. Now it is time for all of us to introduce yourself so that in the coming days, our journey together, it will start. It is not, as Raghuji has beautifully said, it is, we will have to do that inward journey, contemplation, nididhyasana, both have to go hand in hand. I request all of you, please keep your video open so that we will know each other who is attending this class, and we will, in the coming days, we will learn to interact also. And I'm sure if you have any questions to ask him today, we will be very happy, and Raghuji will be very happy to answer, because this is the very introductory, it's an introductory talk actually. So the Yoga Vasishta, that Kathopanishad says, Kasyad Dhiraha Pratyagatmanam Avritta Chakshuhu Amritatvam Ichan. If you want to taste the nectar of Shastra, you have to keep your mind and hearts open. And not only that, Abhyasena tu kaunteya, that Abhyasa has to go on. And then Vairagya also has to be coupled with. So, process of analysis, we will try to understand ourselves better. This whole class is aimed at to understand ourselves, not to understand others, or no, nothing like that. It is a process of understanding oneself and try to transform oneself. That inward journey has to go. For that, I'm sure Adharaniya Raghuji will be there with us, and we also should come up. Even at every situation, how you will be able to put this aspect of it, whether it is a karma or the desire, or what happens, the interaction between the Vishaya Vastu Samparka, what happens to the mind when there is a conflict, what happens when you feel that you are happy, satisfied, as Raghuji was telling, satisfaction, or the contentment. It's a very deeper journey. It is not just simply verbatim. And Patanjali says beautifully, Satu Dirghakala Nairantarya Satkara Sevito Druda Bhumi. As long as we don't keep this self-analysis and self-study, Atma Vivekam, Atma Vicharam, Atma Bodham, if you want to get it, this Atma has to go on inward and inward. And I would be happy. I think Raghuji knows everybody, most of them. I think Rathorji, Vishal Yadav ji also, you know, Mahendra Gupta ji, you know, Anil ji, you know, Rekha, of course, I have introduced. Prakash Maheshwari ji, namaste. I think Raghu ji, you know him?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Prakash ji.
रघु जी को सादर प्रणाम मेरा.
Namaste, namaste.
Satish is there from, he is a sincere yoga seeker and a yoga student from Chennai. And he has been conducting a lot of yoga teaching, students. And when I said about this, he said, I will be very much interested to attend the class. So Satish will be joining us. And you have Sutapa joining from Calcutta. And she is there with her parents now. And she will also be joining, of course, Jayan from Kanyakumari. So we have people from Calcutta to Delhi and Kanyakumari and Rajasthan, everywhere. So it is actually a mini India coming together. And the journey is towards ourselves, the core of our own inner being that should go. And when Raghuji said we will have the class on 21st, I readily accepted it. But then too many things are there in the plate. So till 30th, I want to make self free from these other things. After 30th, we will be having regular classes. And once again, I would like to remind you, this is not just one-way transaction. It has to be two-way. It has to be questions. You have to question him. Then only the Bhagavad Gita says, you know, that an ideal student will keep on asking questions at every stage. Even Shastriji, I remember, I was fortunate enough to be a student under him for some time during my stay in Prashanti. So many, he will keep on poking. Yes, ask, question it. That Vichara Marga, it's a really wonderful analogy. And I'm sure we have Raghuji with us to guide us and motivate us towards our own selves. The purpose of Yoga Vasishta, as the cobwebs that were covering Sri Rama, Vasishta was able to remove. And during this course of our interactions, we will also be able to remove our cobwebs so that we will know ourselves. That is all I have to say. If you want to share, Mahendraji wants to say something, or Anilji wants to say something, or Rekha Didi wants to say something, any one of you, floor is open for all of you to express your gratitude or your questions. You can unmute yourself and say a few words.